An idea I've had for a while now has been doing an iceberg type video. Now, icebergs, for anybody that does not know, is basically informationism, where the most well known things are at the top, but the lower you go down, the murkier, darker, and unknown the stories get. While there are many different NASCAR iceberg videos on YouTube, one of them that isn't is Lost Media Iceberg. So here I am doing my own custom NASCAR Lost Media Iceberg. Again, now there's way more than just what's going to be. As you guys can tell, it's 6 tiers, and there's probably roughly about 12 or 13 entries for each tier. Because the fact, though, that there's so much more that is knocking me in this, I could end up doing a 2.0 version where I do other updates from this iceberg on information that we found since this iceberg video gets made, or entirely new entries. Now, because this is an iceberg video and we'll be talking about incidents involving fatal crashes that some viewers may find disturbing, viewer discretion is advised. Airbase Speedway. This is not a race, game, or even an incident. This is a racetrack that was nearly lost to time. The racetrack was built in Greenville, South Carolina, sometime in the late 1940s, and hosted stock car and motorcycle races. They even had lights for weekly night racing, which was a rarity at the time. And the track owner, a local Hudson named Charlie Hicks, used calcium chloride as a way of keeping the dust down to almost nothing, which created rough track conditions, albeit. Despite it being kind of suspect, it managed to get a cup race in 1951. Less than a month later, Hicks got a fraud charge and the track went into foreclosure. And the land would end up being used for several different things, including major development sites. If it wasn't for Jonathan Nelson and Tom Schmade's article Speed Sport magazine in early 2015, then this race may have been lost forever. In 2019, legendary NASCAR YouTuber, a native of Greenville, South Carolina, Slapshoes, posted a video about this subject that turned into a full-blown trilogy that eventually led to not only a photo of the track, but a photo of racing there as well. If you want a more in-depth look, go check out Slapshoes' trilogy of this place in the description below. 1989 Busch Clash. The Busch Clash was usually the first NASCAR Cup Series race of any new NASCAR season, even if it never counted for points since the mid-1970s. And every one of them had been on YouTube before 2024, except for one in 1989. However, this race had been on YouTube twice, but both times were taken down. It's highly suspected it could be due to false copyright claims filed. NASCAR YouTuber NBR mentioned this race in his Top 10 Lost Media video a few hours after going live. NASCAR Man History, one of the most well-known motorsports documentary YouTube channels, put there that he said he had the full race and ended up uploading it less than 8 hours after NBR's full video, and it went live. The race was on YouTube and is still to this very day, as another legendary NASCAR YouTube community moment occurred. The 1996 Nazareth truck race. The truck series went to the Nazareth Speedway in late June of 1996. But due to the race being delayed for almost 4 hours due to rain, CBS left the race, and it stated that the conclusion was aired on TNN a couple days after the race at 9 p.m. It was also re-aired at 1 a.m. However, this has been disputed as many believe the race was never even recorded. And for years, only a handful of photos and a 1-minute clip existed. Until 2025, almost 30 years after the race, NASCAR announced they would be releasing the race on NASCAR Classics channel and did so in early 2025. One of NASCAR's most famous lost races had finally been found. NASCAR 09 Montreal DLC. This is a DLC that was in NASCAR 09, the last NASCAR game made by EA, that included numerous extra schemes in the Montreal circuit. However, the DLC was taken off the store at some point, I'd assume in 2011, following Technics getting the licensing for NASCAR gaming, and for over a decade, the DLC was lost until May of 2022, when a YouTuber posted a video showing how he got the DLC and left a link for others to get the DLC as well. NASCAR 2011 The Game DLC. NASCAR 2011 The Game, much unlike the previous game's namesake, was used in the 2010 roster when the game came out initially. However, an update DLC came out that included the 2011 car set and tandem drafting. However, at some point a few years later, they were taken off the stores of both PlayStation and Xbox, with no way to purchase them or get them back. However, recently in internet postings, there is a way to get the DLC for Xbox 360 players. So the DLC technically isn't really lost anymore. The 1979 ARCA 200. This was shown along with most other races during the 1979 Speed Weeks leading up to that year's now historically famous 1979 Daytona 500. The race was shown in April of 1979. The reason it's this high on the iceberg is from Kyle Petty's story about this race. Apparently there were some pure ARCA moments like wild crashes, stupid ass passes, and according to Kyle Petty himself, who won the damn race, he won it by a last lap pass on the outside. For anybody wondering how Kyle was basically running a cup car in ARCA, which outweighed his insane experience, as this was legit his first full-blown stock car race at Daytona and stock car race, as far as I know. The race hasn't resurfaced since it took place, but I can only imagine there's reaching the modern eye now. Cut drivers from NASCAR 7. NASCAR 7 is, in my opinion, a good NASCAR game, and the last good one made by EA. It was mainly copy-paste NASCAR 06, but with some fixes and overall more fun experience. The biggest negative the game has is that there are a few missing drivers, most notably Carl Edwards, due to Edwards having his own game, and he and EA not agreeing on a contract, although you can mod him into the game off his 06 car. A few other notables include Clint Boyer, due to his sponsor Jack Daniels. He wasn't even in Cobb altogether, which means there was never a plan for Boyer to ever be in the game, even though he does appear in the now named Rally Series. Ken Trey wasn't in the game due to spots for Little Debbie's having a thing in the contract saying they could only be seen as a sponsor on track and no other merchandising or games or something like that. But files of Schrader's car can be found in the code. A very interesting cut driver is Travis Waffle in the 32 PPI car, who is basically a complete but was cut for unknown reasons. However, the most interesting cut driver by far is Mark Martin from the 6 Roush truck team. If Martin had run full-time for Roush's truck team, he probably would have destroyed the field onto a championship. Well, in NASCAR 7, his AI was like him, overpowered as hell. Enough so they cut him from the final game because he was almost impossible to beat. Another interesting content that wasn't a driver, but a racer at Levi Stratus or in NASCAR 07, Meadow Creek, actually had a second race that the AI ran like a super speedway race. So, like on crack, and it was almost completely out of control. So he decided to cut it from the game. Also, a fantasy track called Redwood was cut from this game. As I can assume, it was cut from early development. The same thing happened in NASCAR 8 with this track as well. And it was been planned for a few games, but the Redwood name never made it into any NASCAR game made by EA.
1970 Alabama 500. The 1970 Alabama 500 was the first live broadcast of a NASCAR race done by ABC on the ABC network, as beforehand every broadcast ABC had done had been in events delayed and edited. During this race, an incident ended up taking place where the race ran extra long because of a rain delay, as they aired opposite of CBS's coverage of the Masters Golf Tournament, and because of a rain delay, ABC basically left the track shortly after the race finished. Shortly, probably seconds after the race ended, and the announcers assumed Bobby Isaac was leading and were stunned when Pete Hamilton took the win. Despite the broadcast problems, it still was very successful and earned more viewers and the first of several live broadcasts done on ABC that year. The broadcast had actually been lost for 50 years until in 2020 during the COVID pandemic, NASCAR had recently started posting full races of classic races to their channel and posted this race as rare footage of the full race to their YouTube channel in April of 2020.
1965 National 500. This was a race that was broadcast on ABC. This race was known for the crash that led to the death of Harold Kite after a stack had been turned over. Kite's car went down the track before being broadsided. Kite died instantly because of this race has never been shown until 2024 when the race was uploaded by a presumed accident on NASCAR Classics. NASCAR Classics quickly deleted the video, but the race had been re-uploaded multiple times. One thing I want to get out of the way early is if a race features a fatal crash, it's likely that the race will never be uploaded by NASCAR unless it's by accident, which is why certain races could end up lost forever.
1982 to 84 Daytona Grand National Series. In 1982, NASCAR rearranged the sportsman division into a national tour. The first race was at Daytona Ford 1982. From the first 3 years of 1982 to 84, the races were shown on the USA Network. The full races, however, have never been found, although the races absolutely exist. The small fragments of the finish of 1982 race, as well as the 84 race, and in 1983, Rodney Howard's crash, have been since not only shown by NASCAR, but re-uploaded to YouTube. These three moments prove that NASCAR likely has all the races. Whether they choose to release them remains to be seen.
the 2002 Busch Series Texas race. Now, this race can be found on YouTube, but only the first 20 laps. A rain delay stopped the race for many hours. Now, Mike Joyce said when CBS left the track that they were going to be shown on TV, at least at conclusion. However, it became apparent TNN decided not to air the race, possibly out of spite for the new TV deal that did not include them and CBS. As far as we know, no broadcast footage exists, and it's likely no broadcast was even done. However, the race absolutely exists in full, as clips exist of crashes and the finish of the race, since it was still on the main camera of the racetrack was still recording. So it's likely the entire race exists on that one camera. But unless NASCAR breaks through the Texas Motorway Vault, it's unlikely this race will ever be seen. 2002-2004 Daytona 500 on NBC thing. This references the intro song played in NBC's first two Daytona 500s as fast-paced interject level theme. However, it's been over 20 years and the theme has still not been found. And there have been rips and reconstruction attempts. This has never been found and is today one of the holy grails of NASCAR lost media.
42 car Watkins Glen 2022. This is unique from all the others on this Iceberg because this is a car that was lost for over 20 years, run in by Jimmy Spencer as Scott Pruitt took over Spencer's regular 41 car for this race. Pruitt came home with a top 10, while Spencer had his second DNQ of the year. So the only time this car could have been seen would have been in practice and qualifying, which all sessions apart from the race are lost, even today. In 2023, however, a few photos of the car were posted to the internet over 20 years afterwards.
1988 Daytona 500 theme. The 1988 Daytona 500 is known for the 1-2 Allison finish and Bobby Allison's final NASCAR career. A major talking point was the one-off theme that CBS used for said broadcast. The theme is the classic 80s, and for almost 40 years now, people have been trying to find the theme. And while recreation attempts and rib attempts have been made, including myself, to this day, much like the NBC 500 themes, no one knows the name or even much about them. Kyle Larson cut from Heat 5. NASCAR Heat 5 was released in early July, with the game effectively being a copy-paste of Heat 4, but worse. However, something people probably know of but don't care to talk about is Kyle Larson is not in the game, and Matt Kenseth is instead. And this was down to Larson's Monza Oval incident on a live stream that left him suspended and released by CGR, and replaced by Matt Kenseth. Since the game came out almost 3 months later, they were able to cut him from the game easily. But don't be surprised if you went to the code and you could probably find him somewhere. I just include this because I feel like it'd be an interesting topic. Cancel paint schemes. There have been hundreds, if not thousands, of cancel paint schemes in NASCAR history. There have been a variety of different reasons. Some come from down to sponsorships, others come from more questionable motives. There's an entire account on Twitter, X, that's dedicated to these lost paint schemes. Jeremy Mayfield Pocono Raceway cut from NASCAR 05. You may notice in NASCAR 205 Chase for Cut that Pocono Speedway is not in the game and is instead replaced by a smaller half-mile version of it. This is likely due to a contract between the track and EA falling through. However, the other big one, it was Jeremy Mayfield, was not in the game. This is a crazy story. Apparently EA wanted Dodge heavily represented, and one suspected cover athlete was Ryan Newman. Since in Fight to the Top, you start off racing Newman. So Newman could have been an idea, but it's also known that Jeremy Mayfield was actually going to be the original cover star. But it's likely that something went really wrong in the negotiations, because not only was Mayfield not the cover star and that was actually changed, but Mayfield was not even in the final game. Instead, the cover athlete of the game ended up going to Kevin Harvick after Casey Kane had been experimented with the demo, but it also didn't go through. 1988 first Pocono race on F&N. This is the famous race that saw the crash that ended Bobby Allison's career. The broadcast on 90 minutes is on YouTube, but a 2.5-hour tape-delayed version was shown on the Financial News Network that evening after the race. It's unknown if the race broadcast survived. Also, it may not be the only NASCAR race broadcasted on said network. Joey Gase's Las Vegas crash in 2021. Now, if you search on YouTube, you'll see plenty of replays. But during the early part of that year's Vegas race, Gase got loose in turns 1 and 2, hit the wall with the back end of the car, and somehow climbed on top of it before slamming back down onto its wheels. Only this single 2 photos exist showing the full story, as the sun is in the way of being able to see anything, as well as the start of the crash. Considering how insane this photo looks, I can only imagine the ride that it was.
1979 Sportsman 300. Like I mentioned about the ARC race, CBS broadcasted all races the week of the 1979 Daytona 500. Another race that was lost was the Sportsman race shown later that year in August. The race was marred by a fiery crash. One Del McCower hit Joe Frazon's car after it already had a major impact, causing a massive fireball. But behind them, more cars crashed, including Don Williams, who died from his injuries after over 10 years after the race, being in a battle of a coma. Since this was pre-1982 and the crash in mind that a driver later died from is likely, unless someone has taped the footage somewhere, this race may be lost forever. 1990 Jimmy Spencer Talladega flip. At the end of the 1990 Talladega race of the first one, as Dale Earnhardt crossed the checker flag to take the win, on the backstretch, Michael Waltrip ran out of fuel and had some cars coming for him, and it ended up with Waltrip in the path of Jimmy Spencer, who clipped Waltrip and was sent flipping, barrel rolling 3 times before landing on all 4 tires, amazingly finishing the race. Most didn't even realize what had happened, including those on broadcast. There's only a few photos of the crash and the aftermath photos exist. If social media existed in 1990, I wonder how that reaction would have been. 2006 Out Club Busch Series race. This race was on YouTube 4 years, but only partially, as almost 100 laps in the middle of the race were missing. This isn't being because Dave W., one of the most famous old race uploaders on YouTube, actually made a mistake and screwed up the recording. So the race was only partial. That was until a new legend arrived in December 2024, as Vody would upload the entire race to YouTube in 60 FPS. As his first video. I will say, if you're going to make yourself famous in uploading old NASCAR races, you better have a race that no one has seen before. For almost 20 years, the first of my GOAT sweeps that weekend could only be seen partially until that December day. Goodies Dash Series 2002 flip. This flip at Oswego Speedway in October of 2002 has this one photo of the 6-car barrel rolling on the front stretch. Most races of this series are not broadcast by this point, so I don't even know if footage of this even exists. I'm not entirely sure why I initially threw this in here. I could have been a mistake when I made this Iceberg about a year and a half ago, but I don't know. There probably is a reason why it's that high. 1979 Gabriel 400. The 1979 Gabriel 400 was a NASCAR Cup Series race set in June at Michigan International Speedway of 1979. The race would ultimately be won by Buddy Baker. The race is notable for the Steve Pfeiffer crash, whose Chevrolet jumped over the berm embankment and ended up injuring some spectators on the pit wall. The broadcast was an apparent 30-minute broadcast. The race was broadcast as had been lost for over 35 years until NASCAR Classics uploaded the race on January 2025. 1982, 85, and 86, 21, 25. These are 3 of classic qualifying races for the Daytona 500 that have never surfaced completely. The 1982's first race is still missing to this day, while the second has been since found, as they were shown on USA Network rather than CBS due to sporting event conflicts for CBS, since these races were usually shown on Saturday instead of the live on Thursday. The 1985 and 86, 21, 25s have been stated to allegedly been televised on tape delay by CBS. Ultimately, the 1985 and 86 heats have been completely inaccessible as of the present day, and there is zero information on whether the 1985 and 86 heats actually were aired, and with NASCAR on TV also placing the races under unconfirmed broadcast sessions, full confirmation that the CBS broadcast occurs have not yet been archived to this day. Cut content from Thunder 03. NASCAR Thunder 03 is my personal favorite NASCAR game, and also I believe is the greatest NASCAR game ever made, with many improvements from Thunder 02 and many new features and important ones at that. There is still a surprising amount of cut content from the game. Some of these could be found in the beta version of the game that includes schemes that ended up being cut for a variety of reasons. The most well-known being Kurt Busch's first win car was under a placeholder, but was cut from the final game due to the contest being over by then. There is also an unbelievable amount of cut drivers from this list. Here's the entire list. Yeah, shit ton of Busch Series drivers and legends. And even fantasy, yes, Alan Bestwick and Wally Dallenbach Jr. were possibly going to be in this game. And so is the UPS track. Seriously? A few Busch Series drivers have their sponsors even said by Joe Moore. However, the Cup drivers are the most interesting, as both Mike Wallace and Buckshot Jones both have spotter audio about them, and the AJ414 car Cup team was also in the game. Whether Compton was going to be in that or not is unsure. The most interesting and annoying one is Joe Nemechek, as he has the most amount of audio of any driver, meaning after Joe Nemechek lost his 26 car ride, he may have still been planned, but since he ended up at Hendrick Motorsports and Nady was still there in the game by the release, Nemechek was cut. Personally, they should have put Nemechek in the 26 and kept Bodine in the 66. Also, if there are any modders around here, at least on YouTube or anybody you know that's modding around this channel, please get in contact, because I would love to be able to have multiple mods for the 2002 season of every single cut driver from NASCAR Thunder 2003 and other basic cut content from the game, and also another mod that's a realistic of all full drivers from 2002 that are not only cut content but drivers who were never even planned to be in the initial game, kind of like what NASCAR Thunder 2000 was kind of created, that type of mod. Anyways, thank you. 1982 Grand National Series race at Atlanta. This was the now named O'Reilly Series' first race at the track, and also was Jeff Gordon's first career win that led him to get noticed by Hendrick Motorsports and Rick Hendrick. The race, however, has never been seen or even it was aired, as ABC recorded it only in case that year's Atlanta Cup Series race was randomly, which it wasn't. So unless someone manages to rip this race from the ABC or Disney vaults, Gordon's first NASCAR Series win may be lost forever. Matt Bell's 2017 Mid-Ohio crash. This is a pretty savage crash that involved driver Matt Bell in the 90 Xfinity car as he lost brakes or either throttle manhung going into the turn and hit the tire very hard enough and it caused the wall to move back. Strangely though, there's no footage of the accident ever was even caught on camera. Not even onboard or fans cams either. So this is a big time crash with no footage surrounding it in 2017. 1974 National 400. This was a race at the Charlotte Speedway in 1974. The race is most known for Marty Robbins' bad accident, as on the second lap, a car had spun and caused major dust to come up, leading to a multi-car accident involving Baker, Jim Vandiver, Joe Frezon, Soapy Castles, Dick Brooks, and Richard Childress. Robbins was immediately behind this group and had 0 times to react being involved. Robbins immediately turned right to avoid broadside Childress and smashed his Dodge into the wall at 165 miles an hour, leaving him with numerous injuries. About 45 minutes of highlights were televised by ABC in October of 1974 as part of Wide World of Sports, along with National Wrestling Championship. The broadcast was lost for nearly 40 years until October of 2023, when NASCAR Classics uploaded the full coverage to its website. The 1976 Dixie 500. This is a race that featured one of Dale Earnhardt's wildest flips. On lap 261, assumingly, Dick Brooks, who was many laps down, broke loose in turn 3 and hit the outside wall, taking a stretch of guardrail. Earnhardt hit him and flipped violently 3 times. The race was supposed to be broadcasted 6 days later on CBS Sports Spectacular. Despite the violent crash, no footage of it has ever surfaced, and it's been almost 50 years now. 1980 Dover races. These are 3 Dover races of 1981, 82, and 84. It has been reported that ESPN had televised highlights of the 1981 CARC Chemicals 500. However, no broadcast of it has resurfaced as of this date. NASCAR TV has also stated that official confirmation of the broadcast occurring has not yet been archived. For years, there had been suspecting that the broadcast had never been done for the 1982 race, but in December of 2024, the race was uploaded to YouTube. The 1984 edition, however, is scarce. According to NASCAR TV, there have been claims that the race was televised as a 1-hour tape delay on Mizlo TV, but currently there is no evidence that this broadcast exists. In fact, the race may have never even been televised, as it has been remained unconfirmed. However, it is obvious a full race was recorded, as Allison's crash can be found as part of the recap to the next race, the 1984 Goodies 500. The original Charlotte Roval configuration in Heat 2. When the Charlotte Roval was first being configured, there were numerous configurations before the final design was seen in 2018 up until 2024. However, before that, the final design was chosen. NASCAR Heat 2 had the 2018 DLC pack come out, and the Roval was in the game. However, with the loop before you turn right, entering back onto the oval. This configuration was only seen in the DLC, and in NASCAR in 2021, Heat 2, 3, and 4
stores. DLCs were all taken off stores in March of 2021 with no way to purchase, meaning for the last 5 years, this DLC has been lost. It's a shame but considering how much modding there is, now hopefully this can make a comeback at some point. The 1983 Southern 500. This race was a very important part of Bobby Allison's defeat of DEW in the 1983 season. This race was reportedly shown on ABC's Wide World of Sports. However, that's what is assumed. Some people suspect the broadcast was never done. However, photos of Ned Jarrett and Victor Lane interviewing Bobby Allison with an ABC mic gives fans hope that maybe a broadcast of some sort exists. Toyota covers for Heat Evolution and Heat 2. In 2016, there was actually a special race competition ran by Toyota for whoever gets on the cover of NASCAR Evolution. Carl Edwards would win that. And in 2017, the All-Star race decided in a bracket-style competition, and won by Kyle Busch, of course. However, there could have been alternate covers of other drivers like Kenseth, Truex Jr. that could have been cover athletes, but who knows officially, although alternate covers have already been revealed from Heat Evolution, but none for Heat 2 so far. 1979 Atlanta 500. This race was in March of 79 at the Atlanta Speedway. The race would ultimately be won by Buddy Baker. However, it's overshadowed by the horrific death of Dennis Wade, a crewman who was fatally struck by Dave Watson's car after he got out of control on pit road. The NASCAR TV detailed that ABC televised 30 minutes of highlights from this race on the 24th of March 1979 as part of ABC's Wide World of Sports, alongside World Target Diving Championships and World Championship Motorcycles. Prior to January 24, it was unknown whether any televised footage contained the fatal incident, though it became the first Atlanta 500 since 1969 to be broadcasted on tape delay. In January 2024, the race broadcast was uploaded to YouTube by NASCAR Classics, but quickly was taken out again. It has since been re-uploaded to the NASCAR Classics website in July 2024. No footage of the incident exists, although it was talked briefly. Dale Sr.'s 1989 flip. This is a well-known practice airborne flip Earnhardt Sr. suffered for that year's Goodies 300 in practice. Earnhardt got loose in the tribal, spun, and got airborne flipped upside down, nearly hitting the wall and catch fencing with roof first, and suffered a violent flip before it landed likely on all four tires, completely destroyed. But Earnhardt walked away without any major injuries and raced that weekend both the Grand National and Daytona 500. Only a few photos existed of the flip, and no footage has ever surfaced of it, and it seems likely footage ever will.